Thanks again for joining us for our webinar today on DriveWorks, the deep dive series. This is the third and final part. It's all about integrating with company systems using DriveWorks. So what are we going to do today? First of all, explain what DriveWorks is, what it's all about. We'll get into the topic of integrations using DriveWorks, and then of course, Q&A at the end. So I need to explain what we call the three pillars of DriveWorks. Well, what you're going to see here is DriveWorks can do a whole lot. Its capabilities are vast and wide. So it takes a bit of effort to focus any given conversation or kind of point of entry discussing what DriveWorks can do for you. So we call these pillars, and there's three of them. The first one, and by the way, these pillars match our webinar series, so that this is the third part of the series that matches the third pillar. So by now, we have already done the first two. First being all things design automation for SOLIDWORKS. In short, DriveWorks is a gold partner of SOLIDWORKS, is the leading partner for all things automation of any kind of SOLIDWORKS activity. More to come on that. CPQ is a topic in of itself. CPQ is configure, price, quote. Short story, build an online product configurator that handles all of your quoting and customer engagement needs in one solution. Finally, what we're here to talk about today is the third pillar, which we kind of colloquially refer to as everything else. But really what we're talking about is all things data, workflows, integrations, and the like. Now, I will say that we have customers that use DriveWorks for some of these purposes, or all of them in some combination, or just one. Right? So most of the folks in this audience, most of our customer base probably has something to do with manufacturing, something to do with SOLIDWORKS. So design automation for SOLIDWORKS is the traditional entry point for most companies, but you don't have to be a SOLIDWORKS user or care to automate your design process in order to talk about the other two. Same goes for CPQ solutions. You don't need a CAD system in place. You don't need to do everything else. Everything else is also a standalone capability. So while we will refer to manufacturing settings and common challenges in a manufacturing business, frankly, the story applies to any old business that has challenges with managing data, instituting workflows, and bringing all their business systems together to act as one. But for those that haven't seen those first two webinars, just a quick review of what the content is there. Design automation. First thing we have to understand is what the configurable nature of your product is. Okay, is it a widget or is it a truly one-off product where every day you're doing something uniquely different than the day before, or are you somewhere in between? And it's that sweet spot in between. The catalogs, what we call configurable product, or even custom products, fit nicely with DriveWorks design automation. Okay, then we have to understand, what does it take to automate the design? We're talking about rules, logic, taking vast amounts of insights and data and putting it into some kind of actionable form, okay, that can then be automated in a lights out, hands-off fashion. Okay, wrapped up that webinar with a peek under the hood. We did a demo of design automation in action. Short story, a user filled out a form, specified a product. Right then and there, we created a full drawing package, assembly files, e-drawing files, so on and so forth, emailed out all this content on the fly. Great example of design automation to behold. From there, the logical next step is CPQ. That's an industry term that stands for configure, price, quote. This CPQ is an off-the-shelf solution within DriveWorks. It doesn't require any kind of setup or really any kind of development. It is intended to take a product configurator, like the image shows here, put it into a website, wrap it with CRM-like capabilities, and really just give you kind of an all-in-one solution to service quoting activity for your supply chain. So before we get into the details of integration, let's have a review of what the totality of DriveWorks capabilities is by kind of category. Okay, so the menu on the right shows the fundamental capabilities within the software: the ability to write rules, automate CAD, which we just talked about with SOLIDWORks, integrate with business systems, which we will talk about today. DriveWorks has its own native 3D rendering format that's really handy for 3D visualizations through a website. UI builder, that means building forms. Give your users something to pick and click against to either specify a product or activate a workflow. Doesn't really matter. Just a user can use a keyboard and a mouse to interact with the application. Building out workflows and processes, of course, getting reporting is critical. Generating any kind of document format is a big piece of DriveWorks as well. Now, with all these capabilities, especially in the fact that it's a no-code setting, really positions it well for a do-it-yourself type environment. It's web ready. It really becomes all-in-one solution that's really outstanding for manufacturing companies of customizable, configurable products. But when it comes to integrating business systems, we can think of DriveWorks as a very capable piece of middleware, where we're going to put most of these capabilities to use, but not all. Today we're not really going to get into automating CAD or taking advantage of 3D preview technology, but everything else is in fact in play. So our third pillar we call everything else. Not the most formal term, but we think it's actually pretty articulates what DriveWorks can do for your business. And everything else I correlate to what I see as the interstitial space in the business. Okay, that's kind of a geeky term. What am I talking about? Interstitial space, you could think of if you had a cup and you fill it with sand, well, it turns out there's still space in there. You can pour water into the cup, and the ability to take that water in represents the fact that there's just unfilled space in that area. Perhaps a slightly better reference for a company is a cup full of rocks, right? Where the rocks represent your various business systems, your people, your departments, customer base. You might have a database or an Excel file, whatever it is, these independent chunks of functionality that just exist within the four walls of the company. Much like these rocks, they are sometimes touching, sometimes not. If one rock does not touch them all, so on and so forth. So this helps visualize what most companies face as a challenge in running better and running in today's world of technology, is that there's this fundamental challenge of making sure that everything's connected into a comprehensive experience. Okay. In this case, we visualize DriveWorks as the water that's poured in, encapsulates all the rocks together as once, thereby connecting everything cohesively. So the water fills the gaps. What that does is it allows you to control the 5 whys: why, who, what, when, which. Yeah, all these aspects of your business activity are now controllable. At the end of the day, we can create a platform that really puts you on a strong path to enabling a digital transformation type journey that I think most of us would agree is the future for all businesses. Okay, with that in mind, fire up the second poll here. Let's talk about tech stacks. Share a bit of insight or give us a self-assessment of your company's internal tech stack. If you don't know what the term tech stack means, that might mean something. And maybe you have some elements of technology in place, but it doesn't work quite right. Or maybe you're feeling pretty good about the way your company operates and it's a well-oiled machine. Results are coming in. Okay, no one's admitting to having duct tape as part of their tech stack. Good. But some folks are indicating that they're on the very early end of putting together their company's tech stack. The majority say they have some tech, but it's not quite doing the job, not working the way they would like it to. And that's pretty common to be in that spot right there. All right, thanks for contributing. Okay, deeper dive into this everything else commentary. At the end of the day, it's all about data. It doesn't matter what kind of company you have, whether it's a fruit distributor importing fruit from Mexico and selling across the country, or you manufacture architectural canopies, or you're a pharma business, whatever. at the end of the day, no matter what the content of the business is, no matter what goes out off the shipping dock, what we're all here to do effectively is to manage data and do it well. So the key question is, pretty much at all times, everywhere in the business, is the right data in the right hands at the right time. That applies to a factory worker, to the president, to your customers, to your vendors. Everyone needs data of some kind in their own hands right when they need it. And this is the key challenge in most businesses today. So how does DriveWorks come into play to address that point? It can position itself as the sort of center cog in the machinery. That is the place where all other business systems come together, share data, share workflows, essentially make things happen. This is fundamentally just, you might consider it's a piece of middleware in that regard. I will say, which is a very unique characteristic of DriveWorks, is that from the get-go, deep in its DNA, DriveWorks is system agnostic. All the other business systems that might go around it, DriveWorks doesn't really care what they are, what the brand is, what they do. If there's data to be shared and that other business system can participate in sharing, then DriveWorks is ready to go. So what are the methods for doing it? Well, if we're talking about data, usually there's some kind of database involved. Most often we see Microsoft SQL Server, but DriveWorks, because it's system agnostic, can work with pretty much every other database type, format, and brand out there. Another way of communicating data is through some kind of text file. Excel, Word, JSON, HTML to communicate through a website, CSV, it doesn't really matter. If it's data that is captured into a file, and that file is the thing that sends data from one place to another, DriveWorks is ready to work with those as well. Finally, there's a growing list of out-of-the-box integrations. Okay, this means that as soon as you buy and install DriveWorks, these systems are ready to activate against without really any development. Enter your credentials, enter a bit about where that other system exists, and you're up and running with integration capabilities. Another dimension of everything else is the very deep and true customization capability that, again, is really written deep into the DNA of DriveWorks as a software. This is best expressed and sort of conceptualized through the ability to build forms in DriveWorks. What we see up top is a form, a piece of UI before anything's been done to it, that can turn into whatever you want. How pretty do you want it? What colors? What buttons? What shapes? What sizes? What's the experience you want the user to have? Do you want branding? Those types of the ability to create exactly what you want. That doesn't apply just to the graphical nature of using DriveWorks. It applies to every nook and cranny of the software. It is a blank canvas into which you institute exactly what your company needs are. Okay, that's a pretty unique characteristic as well. If you had a hand in any other type of business system, whether it be QuickBooks, the most sophisticated ERP, SOLIDWORKS PDM, when you implement such a system, you are using, fundamentally, you're taking what that software supplier gives you, and you can at best configure it for your needs. To say that you can customize those solutions might be a stretch, whereas DriveWorks is sort of an inverse situation. You build it out to whatever you need. Also, every nook and cranny of DriveWorks is dynamic and controllable. Okay, all of this is achieved in a no-code environment. So how do we take all this capability and use it? First thing is establishing a workflow. Whatever your business is trying to achieve, in this case, we might have a very simplified quoting workflow, okay, where the way to get from A to Z in that business objective is clearly articulated in a visual, WYSIWYG, drag and drop way. We define each step, connect them, define the routings, right? All with a mouse, very little keyboard, okay? At every step, we can control what exactly happens within. When we transition to a new state, we control how exactly that activity occurs. Again, getting back to those 5 whys. okay? That is further enabled by, you can control workflows with processes. So when you click any given button on a form, what exactly happens right then and there? Again, more drag and drop, WYSIWYG functionality. Each of these boxes represents a core piece of functionality. You could think of them as tools, right? So this is really an exercise in setting order of operations and a logical construct that captures your exact needs. So here in the third example, we start a process, a decision is made, true or false, we go one way or the other, send out an email, add an entry to a database, so on and so on. Just keep stringing the activity together until you get the exact result you want. Taking that even a level deeper, every single tool, like I said, every single nook and cranny of software is governed by rules of your choice, of your choosing. Okay, here's one example of a rule. This is about as codey as it gets. Okay, this is Excel grade syntax that can capture powerful logic. In this case, it's a simple if statement. If this is true, do that. If not, do something else. Right? That capability to institute that kind of decision making exists at the very depths of the software that you need to get your bespoke functionality up and running. All right, with that bit of preview, we're going to go into a more of a demo experience here. And I'm going to, this is a public facing website that I encourage everyone to take some time to browse. I will put this into the go-to chats. So it's handy. So you should see in the go-to webinar, the very bottom section called chat. That's the URL. You can click on that at any time and just experience this for yourself. But for now, let me just explain what this website has on it. A lot of interesting stuff. Okay, so first example here is a truly embedded configurator. Okay, right into a normal website, it's seamless, real-time, it's dynamic, it features that 3D preview technology. If you start to make choices to the specification of this product, you'll see the pricing change, so on and so forth. Pretty slick. There's a couple of different products you can play around with to understand what that's about. Below, we have 20 plus industry examples of what we would consider standalone product configurators. Okay, not the focus of today's webinar, but just know that if you are a manufacturing company with a configurable product, a lot of good examples here to try to understand how you might connect for yourself some combination of CAD automation, CPQ, and integrating other business systems together. Okay, at the bottom, this is the good stuff in my opinion. This is what we're going to study today, is a complete review of the DriveWorks technology. Okay, you might ask yourself, okay, Joel says that this is a no-code environment. Well, what does that really mean? There's an entire demo that exposes what a day in the life of instituting rules and logic into DriveWorks is all about. How do we build out forms from scratch? Well, demo dedicated to that as well. What capabilities are there with workflows? So on and so forth. Even a bit on automating CAD at the bottom. But today, the focus, again, is integration. Let's get started. What I'll point out to begin with first, a couple things. Everything that we are seeing on this website was created by using DriveWorks. So once we get into this space here, there's no website technology, there's no code, there's nothing fancy. Everything is now happening within this no-code setting that DriveWorks provides its users. Okay. Second thing I'll point out is all of this is happening live, real time, with the host of this system being DriveWorks' own servers in the UK. So imagine they might be your company, and we are experiencing your customers or your vendors' experience using DriveWorks over the internet. So short story, anything that I do and click, I'm in North Carolina, that's going to DriveWorks, and we will see that that might be going to somewhere else on the planet, some other business system, coming back to DriveWorks, coming back to me for a total user experience. Okay, all that being said, let's see what integration is all about. So first, let's kind of recognize the various forms of integrating systems these days. All right, that's nicely articulated here on the first page of the demo. We've reviewed some of this already. We mentioned file types, CSV, HTML, JSON, you name it. Files are still commonly used today to move information from one place to another. Databases, of course, are hugely important. Your business system, your third-party system probably has its own database. DriveWorks might have its own. Those two databases somehow need to play nice together, sometimes with an intermediate database in between. Okay. What continues to gain more popularity across the board, across all technologies, is the use of web services. The nice thing about web services is to what degree they've been standardized. It's when it comes to authentication, sending what kind of data and how it's structured into a payload, what the signals are back and forth between systems. All of that has been very well standardized. It's really easy to consume and put to use. Web services is a great way to, that's becoming kind of the default and preferred way to work between DriveWorks and another system. Particularly helpful if that communication needs to go across the internet. HTTP request comes to the rescue. That doesn't have to be the case. You can use web services to connect between business systems on the same network. Okay. If one of those three kind of fundamental, foundational levels of integration don't work, we will get into the DriveWorks API. And furthermore, we will talk about Power Packs, which is another way of saying those out-of-the-box integrations that DriveWorks has already made available. Okay, so what we see here is, again, another reference to DriveWorks' 3D technology. That's all fine and good, not required to communicate these points, but kind of cool. So in this demo, we have an example product configurator, just a simplified configurable cabinet, right? And right here in the demo, we can just make some rudimentary changes to the product. Yes, that 3D representation of the product adjusts for us real time, which is a great mechanism to supply feedback to the user. But what's more interesting for today's topic is that all the underlying data behind this cabinet is also accessible and available to leverage, again, real time and dynamically. Okay, so if we start thinking about the right data in the right hands at the right time, what does that mean to you as a company, and what does that mean to every individual involved? So the purchasing agent might be very interested in knowing what the bill of materials is for that product, or the ERP system might need to be updated for its routing. PDM might need to know something, so on and so forth. So just fundamentally, we are seeing clear as day just how a product configurator type experience can be interwoven into this idea of integrations. Okay, so we are seeing that on the screen, but of course we can make that same data available real time. So if XML is your thing, here it is ready to go. Otherwise, the text file, right then and there, available instantly. Importing. Ooh, I'm not sure I have the file to import here. Quick browse, I can find something. I apologize, I do not have the text file prepared. I don't think I'm going to try and find one now. But if we were to import one, whether it's a CSV or some other text format, instantly we can upload it and have it available, quote unquote, in the system real time through a browser. Just to track what would have happened there. I upload something from my own machine, locally, let's say, gets brought over to DriveWorks, rendered, and returned back to me through a browser. Pretty cool collection of technology. On to databases. So again, SQL is pretty popular. That's probably the database of choice for most companies that we work with, but it need not be SQL. But we see here on display a little simple example of some SQL syntax. Okay, and we as a DriveWorks user, through the user experience, we're going to introduce a piece of information that needs to dynamically in real time integrate into the system as a whole. Okay, so just simple example, we're going to filter this database table by a country. There we go, easy as that. Again, this SQL database in the UK on their server. I'm a user in North Carolina. We are seeing real-time interactions with that database source. That's reading data. We can write data as well. Again, another very simple insert statement, part of the T-SQL language. And what we're going to see here is that we will insert what we type in this box directly into their database. Okay, rudimentary example of writing. Here we go. So just to point out again, I typed something here in North Carolina, hit enter, off to the UK it goes, written to their database, and which then in turn updates the DriveWorks form that I am consuming back in North Carolina via a website. Web services, that third and kind of growing in popularity method of communicating. We have a couple examples of web services being put to use against public APIs. In this case, this is a demonstration with the Google Maps distance matrix. That's a very specific endpoint in there. I don't know, Google has thousands of APIs available. This one is specifically suited for calculating the distance between two places. Okay, so just the user of the DriveWorks application just simply needs to enter two locations, hit the button, and instantly results are available. So again, to trace the activity that just happened, North Carolina browser user sends data to DriveWorks in the UK because they're hosting their implementation. DriveWorks then sent a web service request off to Google, who responded instantly, and DriveWorks made that data and response available into the form that, again, I'm experiencing in the US, all within a second, right? Great example of a web-based integration. To see that we can do something else, let's try a different location. There we go. Now, for most companies out there that are in the audience here, you probably don't care about Google Maps. What you might be interested in is getting your latest pricing on your materials set in ERP, or you might need to tap into a CRM database to pull the location information, the shipping address for a company as soon as you make that shipping ticket, right? So I think we can all think of examples of putting web services to work for your own business needs. We have a second example here, Parcel Monkey. Again, user enters data, whatever that may be. I'm going to enter a different weight, and what will be returned? Oh, didn't like that. 0 courier quotes returned. I guess they didn't like that I wanted to send it 100 pounds. Here we go. So this particular web service, their role in life is to gather shipping data from all major carriers. You just simply need to supply the information. They give you the data back. Again, I'm sure you can come up with your own examples of putting web services to work internally. So these circumstances are rooted in we're in DriveWorks, and we need DriveWorks to go out, get information, and bring it back. That's a certain directionality of communication, but sometimes you need another system to send data to DriveWorks, right? And so in other words, that activity, that communication activity is not instigated, not provoked by a user in the moment. That information needs to come in to DriveWorks in a kind of black box, not a black box, a kind of lights out fashion, right? DriveWorks needs to be on the receiving end of the request. This is a little codey, a little geeky, but it's an example of a piece of code that enables DriveWorks to take some kind of information from that third-party system. By example, you can see contact name, email address, dollar, height, depth, width, etc. So these are the pieces of information that DriveWorks will have been set up with to receive from some other system. I don't know, maybe it's an ERP system into which sales folks enter an order, and they enter an order based on a smart part numbering system, right? They've got a 30-digit code that represents their product line, and the salesperson simply needs to enter the right code. But that code means a lot. There's a lot of design intent, options, and functionality and configuration data baked into that code. Well, let's just say that DriveWorks takes it from there to automate the creation of CAD content, create Excel files, Word documents, send out emails, do all the other stuff that you want to automate downstream of that ERP tree. Well, we can automate that whole thing by just simply setting up DriveWorks to receive that part number from the ERP system. So instead of this whole collection of content, it would just simply be part number, and then the part number is supplied. That's it. DriveWorks knows what to do from there. Okay. Moving on to APIs, I will say that at this point, the conversation deviates from what I've claimed DriveWorks to be a no-code environment. APIs are explicitly based on code in the .NET framework. So the short story is that if the totality of DriveWorks functionality that's native to the application that ships with it, that doesn't handle a very specific or quirky or just sophisticated need that your company has, it can still be accomplished on top of the total DriveWorks functionality using the API. Okay, you will have to get a programmer involved. This is sort of will be considered custom work that as a DriveWorks customer, you'd be responsible for creating or maintaining. At TPM, we can certainly help, but ultimately you're working outside of the DriveWorks product. Really, the point here is that the capability exists, but what we see with our customer base, we have very few needs to do this. We find that DriveWorks out of the box tends to handle everything. Okay. On a separate note, there is a growing list of power packs. This is actually a little out of date. By now, there are many more that I showed you in my slideshow. Power packs are instances of where DriveWorks has taken it upon themselves to create the integration right out of the box. Okay, these are all using web services, right? But literally all you have to do is download the Power Pack, activate the plugin, enter your credentials for that other system, and just like that, you are now connected. So really powerful stuff. DriveWorks is focusing in the CRM space and the ERP space by default, but also has Power Packs for working more seamlessly with the Azure platform, a lot of other Microsoft products and the like. So that's clearly where technology as a whole is going. It's all about integrations, and DriveWorks is, I'll say, ahead of the curve on that. Slight distinction from the .NET API is the web API. Okay, DriveWorks has a collection of web tech functionality called integration theme, which is basically a wrapper around the main API that can be tapped into using what is now traditional web tech. Really, I'm talking about a JavaScript client SDK that if you're in a position to do custom programming in the realm of websites, then DriveWorks is ready to meet you there as well. The more and more functionality these days is being packed into the website domain with the ultimate goal of providing as much as good of a user experience as you can via a website. So again, DriveWorks is staying out in front of those technologies and bringing them and intertwining them into the overall DriveWorks tech stack. Okay, well, that is what I think is a great introduction to what integrations means specifically for DriveWorks. Okay, and that is back to the presentation. I think we've got one more poll that I want to ask the group, and then we will move into Q&A. This is a pretty simple one, just a yes or no. Does your company, the question isn't do you use CAD, but does the company rely on CAD or design or product data to operate? In other words, you might use CAD to create a drawing that's just available to view generally, but there's underlying data behind that CAD data set. Do you take advantage of that, or do you need to? For example, that CAD assembly might have a bill of materials. Purchasing agent needs to act against those bill of materials. Or your ERP system might need certain bits of information. Or you have to send off certain pieces of data to a vendor. That's what I mean by relying. Okay. 3/4 of you answered yes, we do rely on underlying CAD data to power our business. Okay, but I just want to point out that everything that I've talked about today can exist outside of a CAD environment. It just so happens we were using products and the underlying CAD data to make points about integration. But we do have DriveWorks customers that have nothing to do with manufacturing, nothing to do with CAD at all. They still take advantage of DriveWorks as a comprehensive piece of middleware. All right, plenty of time for Q&A. I do see several questions that come in, so we have a lot of time to address those for now. Okay, let me pull those up. Okay, first question, what ERP can DriveWorks connect to? Great question. We get this exact question all the time. It's a very natural first question. The short answer is that it doesn't matter. The fuller answer is that it actually matters more about can that ERP system, can that third party connect DriveWorks. So as I said before, DriveWorks is built to be system agnostic. And the bulk of the presentation was talking about all the various ways to integrate. DriveWorks can handle them all. Okay, so DriveWorks is ready to be a party to that integration. From there, it really depends on what the ERP system's capability can do, what that capability is. So we can give examples of ERP brands, products that there have been successful integrations with, NetSuite, Sage, SysPro, Dynamics, Business Central. Those come to mind right now off the top of my head. And frankly, pretty much all of those were done with web services. The first thing that I would ask in a more specific situation is, what's the ERP product? I would go search the documentation and read up on what their integration capabilities are. If they're fully enabled for web services, that's a great starting point right there. Okay. Oops, didn't close the poll. Sorry about that. Second question, is DriveWorks a cloud application? And I think it's a follow-on question, how can it be put to use in multiple locations? Okay, two different questions here. I see how they might be related in one's mind, but they're actually two different questions. So is DriveWorks a cloud application? No, it is not. Is it web enabled? Yes, it is. The DriveWorks as an application, it is an installed piece of software. Where do you install it? That's up to you. It could be on, personally, I've got DriveWorks right here on my laptop. You can install it on your server. You can install network versions that are accessible to everyone in your company. But it is a downloaded application that you install either locally or in the cloud, on a virtual machine, on the server. It doesn't matter, but it's yours to possess, yours to install as you see fit. The details of installation are very case specific, but DriveWorks is a very flexible software in that regard. Everyone's implementation is slightly different, so it's hard to generalize from there. Now, how can it be put to use in multiple locations? Unfortunately, that's not a simple thread there, but I can respond to aspects of the question. Multiple locations, you have to, that invokes a lot of IT topics such as permissions, file access, file sharing, network firewalls, VPNs. I mean, it really, that discussion goes full circle right back to the customer, what their IT policies are, what they're willing to open up and enable. So really, it's not a question for DriveWorks, more so as a question to your own company and how you actually want to operate. But there are plenty of example use cases out there of multinational companies using DriveWorks across all divisions, all locations, so on and so forth, and very sophisticated IT and high security scenarios. So from what I've seen in my experience, I'm very confident that DriveWorks can meet you where you're at. That DriveWorks is web enabled kind of brings these two topics together, because what it does is it enables the users of the software, like the consumers of the implementation. In short, because you can access the DriveWorks implementation via a website, you can access it anywhere around the world. If if that's the way it's been configured. So it's the web-enabled aspect of this that I can admit sort of clouds these two topics, but there's a lot of flexibility and capability. Okay, can DriveWorks send BOM data to ERP? Absolutely, and then we saw some examples of that. I think this question came in early. We saw in the cabinet configurator example that as we configured the cabinets, the bill of materials was in that case generated real time dynamically, and we saw that data, that same data could be sent by file, by web service, or written to a database. So yes, the BOM data is there, it's available, you can put your hands on it. In what format the ERP needs it, under what circumstances, that's up for the ERP to dictate, but DriveWorks is there ready to send it along. Now, specifically for SOLIDWORKS, part of the integration between DriveWorks and SOLIDWORKS is the ability to extract bill of materials data that SOLIDWORKS itself creates, right? That the bill of materials is an intrinsic result of the CAD, okay? We can take direct advantage of that. So that imagine your CAD process is automated, including the extraction of the bill of materials data from the SOLIDWORKS file set. We bring that into DriveWorks, possibly do something to it, massage it, add a little extra stuff, strip out some unnecessary items, whatever your company might require, then take advantage of the integration to put that BOM data into a payload, send it off with a web service, and then ERP takes it from there. So yeah, I would say from an integration standpoint, handling BOM data is probably the most popular use case. Between that and integrating CRM data into a product configurator, those are probably the two that companies start off with first, and then they kind of go from there. Okay, one more question here. We already have multiple databases in place for various company and product purposes. Okay, can DriveWorks use those instead of creating additional databases from scratch in SQL? Yes, so I'll reiterate that we use examples of SQL. I say SQL is the database type that we see the most, but by no means do you have to use SQL. If you've got MySQL or Oracle or any other database type, got the data that you need there already, it works. The rest, other aspects of your business are happy with that data content. No reason to reinvent the wheel just for DriveWorks. Have DriveWorks tap into it and run with it from there. Okay, one more question here. Does DriveWorks have a solution for the authentication and authorization when integrating with customers' system? That sounds like a web service related question. Perhaps the quickest answer there is we just facilitated an integration with a Microsoft solution using OAuth 2.0, what is, I think, is a pretty high standard for authentication. Authorization handles a lot of those intricacies, and that was done quite nicely. I will mention that integration was a lot of the initial legwork was supplied by DriveWorks. Just another example of their efforts to build out this a supplemental software set, these Power Pack plugins that have a lot of that solutioning already built in. So for that particular customer, we used DriveWorks' prior work to do exactly that, to create that OAuth 2.0 functionality out of the box. We then guided the customer through building on top of that, including, like I just mentioned before, extracting SOLIDWORKS BOM data, doing a little ETL to it, transforming it, making it just right, and then sending off to Microsoft Business Central to be used there. So yeah, I think the short answer for that is yes. Okay, next question, would DriveWorks be beneficial to implementing a new ERP system? If so, how? Yes, I think so. The way we tend to address that question is if you have DriveWorks in mind, you have moving to a new ERP system in mind. At the end of the day, what DriveWorks allows you to do is choose an ERP system based on more what I would consider like vanilla capabilities, okay? And allow DriveWorks to do all the rest. All the rest meaning the really complicated stuff, handling the caveats, the little bits, bobs of functionality that are just not native capabilities in ERP. If we think about what an ERP system is, at its heart, it's an accounting finance package, right? Producing financial reports, handling inventory, controlling information about items, right? That's what all ERP systems do at the core, what they're built to handle. From there, they do tend to kind of radiate outwards to try to encompass more and more of the business, whether it's like a CRM bolt-on solution, bolt-on MES solution, different ERPs are more geared towards certain types of manufacturing and project management. Each one kind of tries to go in its own way. But no, not a single ERP system was built with you specifically in mind. They were not built for you. So at some level, working with an ERP is along the way, you have to make choices about how you want to comply with how that ERP works. You are a certain shape, that ERP is a different shape, you have to fit your shape to theirs. That's in general how that implementation tends to go. So what we can look at DriveWorks as being the thing that enables you to not have to change too much about how you want to operate just to satisfy that ERP system. So yes, we have actually engaged with several customers that when they look at DriveWorks and a new ERP system together as like a part of their future tech stack, they found that by implementing DriveWorks first, wrapping their head around all those capabilities, and then when they move to ERP, they just find it to be a much simpler conversation, I guess. So hopefully that starts to address that question. Okay, I think that might be it. Yeah, good questions, everyone. Any more to come in, just please put them into the chat. Otherwise, we will wrap this up a little early, give you some time back. Okay, well, I think that's it. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. All about integrating with other business systems using DriveWorks. Don't forget, we do have 2 other parts of the webinar series that preceded this. If you want to learn more about CAD automation, you want to learn more about CPQ, or just generally how all the aspects of DriveWorks can fit together as one total solution. Really encourage you to watch those. Don't forget to go check out the DriveWorksLive.com website that I chatted out. Finally, questions, comments, if you want to learn more, please email me. My email address is right here. This is what we do day in and day out. We love DriveWorks. We love talking about this kind of stuff with our customers. So even if you just have a question, please reach out and we'll love to chat. All right. Well, thanks everyone for your time. Have a good week.